She disguised herself as a janitor in her own company to test her son's girlfriend. What she discovered about human nature will shock you, and what happened next will restore your faith in true love. Mrs. Eleanor Washington sat in her mahogany-paneled office, staring at a photograph of her son Marcus. He was her everything, her only child, her pride and joy. After her husband's death 5 years ago, Marcus had become the center of her world. Together, they had built Washington Enterprises into one of Atlanta's most successful black-owned businesses. But now, Marcus was coming home from Harvard with his MBA, ready to take over the company. And Eleanor had one terrifying question keeping her awake at night. Who would her son marry? You see, Eleanor had seen it all before. She'd watched wealthy young men fall for women who saw dollar signs instead of love. Beautiful faces with empty hearts. Designer dresses hiding greedy souls. She couldn't bear the thought of her Marcus, her sweet, intelligent boy, being used by some gold digger who only wanted his money. So Eleanor Washington made a decision that would change everything. She was going undercover. The next Monday morning, if you had walked into the gleaming offices of Washington Enterprises in downtown Atlanta, you would have seen something unusual. A new janitor had started work. An older black woman in a faded blue uniform, her graying hair pulled back in a simple bun. She carried herself with quiet dignity. But to everyone in that office, she was invisible. Just another service worker they didn't need to notice. But this wasn't just any janitor. This was Eleanor Washington, worth millions, disguised as Miss Eleanor, the cleaning lady. Her first day was about to teach her everything she needed to know about the women working in her company. As Eleanor pushed her mop cart down the polished hallway, she heard the click-click-click of expensive heels. A group of young women emerged from the elevator, their laughter echoing off the walls. Leading them was Vanessa Thompson, tall, gorgeous, with perfectly styled hair and a designer handbag that cost more than most people's rent. Behind her walked Nicole Jackson, her loyal follower, always ready to agree with whatever Vanessa said. The moment they saw Eleanor, their conversation stopped. Then came the snickers. "Oh my God," Vanessa said loudly, wrinkling her nose. "Who let this old woman in here? Did she get lost looking for the bus stop?" Nicole giggled. Maybe she thought this was the welfare office. Their cruel laughter filled the hallway, but Eleanor kept mopping, her heart pounding. She'd lived her whole life being respected, being called Mrs. Washington with reverence. Now she was just a target for their mockery. But then, something beautiful happened. From behind the group, a soft voice spoke up. "Good morning, ma'am. How are you today?" Eleanor looked up to see a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She was simply dressed, no designer labels, but there was something special about her. A warmth that seemed to light up the space around her. This was Jasmine Parker, a junior employee who earned barely enough to pay her bills, but whose heart was richer than gold. "I'm fine, baby," Eleanor replied, studying this young woman carefully. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Jasmine, why are you talking to the help? We have work to do." But Jasmine didn't follow them. Instead, she lingered for a moment, her eyes full of respect. "Have a blessed day, ma'am," she said softly, then walked to her small desk in the corner. Eleanor's heart stirred. In a building full of people who looked right through her, one person had seen her humanity. But the real test was yet to come. Later that morning, Eleanor was mopping the floor near the break room when disaster struck, or rather, when she made it strike. As Vanessa and Nicole strutted by, talking loudly about their weekend shopping sprees, Eleanor deliberately stumbled, her mop bucket crashing to the floor. Dirty water spread everywhere as she fell hard onto the cold marble tiles. The sound echoed through the office like a gunshot. Vanessa and Nicole stopped and turned, their faces immediately twisting into cruel amusement. "Oh no," Vanessa said with fake concern, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The old lady fell down. Maybe she needs a walker. Nicole burst into laughter. Girl, she's moving so slow. We'll be here all day waiting for her to clean this up. Eleanor groaned, pretending to struggle as she lay on the wet floor. Her designer clothes, now hidden under that janitor's uniform, were soaked with dirty mop water. Her pride was bruised more than her body, but she needed to see what would happen next. Please, Eleanor whispered, reaching out her hand. Somebody help me. Vanessa folded her arms, her perfectly manicured nails gleaming under the office lights. We're not janitors, honey. Clean up your own mess. The two women walked away, their laughter echoing down the hall. Eleanor lay there on that cold, wet floor, feeling more alone than she had since her husband's death. Was this how people really were when they thought no one important was watching? Then she heard footsteps, quick, urgent ones. Oh my goodness! Ma'am, are you okay? Eleanor looked up to see Jasmine rushing toward her, her face full of genuine worry. Without hesitation, Jasmine knelt down on that wet, dirty floor, not caring about her own clothes getting soaked. Here, let me help you up, Mama, Jasmine said softly, using the endearing term that made Eleanor's heart skip a beat. With surprising strength, Jasmine helped Eleanor to her feet, steadying her with gentle hands. Are you hurt anywhere? Jasmine asked, her eyes scanning Eleanor's face with real concern. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes, not from any physical pain, but from the overwhelming kindness of this young woman. I'm okay, baby. Thank you. Jasmine didn't stop there. She grabbed paper towels and began cleaning up the spilled water, then helped Eleanor gather her cleaning supplies. All while Vanessa and Nicole watched from across the office, their faces twisted with disgust. Why are you helping her? Vanessa called out. She's just a janitor. Jasmine stood up, her voice firm but respectful. She's a human being. And where I come from, we help people when they're down. Eleanor's heart swelled with pride. This young woman, this beautiful, kind soul, had just passed the first test with flying colors. But the real test was still to come. The next day, Eleanor arrived at work with a special lunch. Homemade fried chicken, mac and cheese, and cornbread. The kind of soul food that told stories. The kind that came from love and tradition. She sat alone in the break room, the rich aromas filling the air. Within minutes, Vanessa and Nicole appeared in the doorway. Ugh, what is that smell? Nicole complained, covering her nose. Vanessa sneered. It's the janitor's ghetto food, probably been sitting out all day. They laughed and whispered, making Eleanor feel like an exhibit in a zoo. But then Jasmine walked in with her simple brown bag lunch. She saw Eleanor sitting alone, saw the mockery happening, and made a choice that would change her life forever. Good afternoon, Mama, Jasmine said warmly, walking straight to Eleanor's table. Mind if I join you? Eleanor's face lit up. Of course, baby. Sit right here. Jasmine sat down and opened her own modest lunch, a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. But her eyes kept drifting to Eleanor's home-cooked meal. That looks absolutely delicious, Jasmine said with genuine admiration. Did you cook that yourself? Sure did, baby. Would you like to try some? Vanessa laughed out loud from across the room. Jasmine, you're actually going to eat food from the janitor? Girl, you'll probably get food poisoning. But Jasmine ignored them completely. She accepted the offered bite of Eleanor's cornbread, and when she tasted it, her eyes closed with pure pleasure. Mama, this tastes like love, Jasmine said softly. It reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. In that moment, Eleanor Washington knew she had found her answer. While other women judged her by her appearance, mocked her background, and treated her like she was invisible, Jasmine had seen her heart. She had shown kindness without expecting anything in return. She had defended Eleanor when others attacked, helped her when she was down, and now she was sharing a meal like they were family. This was the woman her son needed to meet. Eleanor smiled, her heart full of hope for the first time in years. Her test was working perfectly. Soon, Marcus would be home, and when he met Jasmine, Eleanor was certain something magical would happen. But what Eleanor didn't know was that some people would do anything, absolutely anything, to destroy true love when they saw it blooming. The real battle was about to begin. 3 weeks later, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport was buzzing with its usual chaos. Travelers rushing with suitcases, families reuniting, taxi drivers honking outside. But walking through that crowd was a man who commanded attention without even trying. Marcus Washington had finally come home. Tall, handsome, with the quiet confidence that comes from both education and good upbringing. Marcus wore his success like a perfectly tailored suit. Harvard MBA, years of experience in New York's financial district, and now ready to take over his family's empire. But what made him truly special wasn't his money or his degrees. It was the way his late father had raised him to treat every person with dignity and respect. The moment Marcus stepped into Washington Enterprises, the entire office transformed. Women who had been slouching at their desks suddenly sat up straight, fixing their hair and reapplying lipstick. Vanessa practically sprinted to the ladies' room to check her makeup, while Nicole frantically searched for her compact mirror. "Girl, he is fine," Vanessa whispered to Nicole, her eyes following Marcus as he walked through the office. "And rich. I need to be the first one to introduce myself." But Marcus barely noticed the attention. He was a man with a mission, to honor his father's legacy and continue building something meaningful. As he surveyed his new domain, something caught his eye that stopped him cold. There, in the middle of the polished office floor, was an older woman on her hands and knees, scrubbing the marble tiles. Her uniform was faded, her back bent from years of hard work. But while everyone else rushed around trying to impress the new boss, she just continued working with quiet dignity. Marcus frowned. Something about this scene didn't sit right with him. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently, approaching Eleanor's disguised form. Eleanor looked up, her heart racing. Her son was even more handsome than his pictures, but more importantly, there was kindness in his eyes, the same kindness his father had possessed. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "Why are you doing this work? Where's our cleaning crew?" Before Eleanor could answer, Vanessa's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Oh, Mr. Washington," she said with a dazzling smile, practically floating over in her designer heels. "Don't worry about her. She's just the janitor. She's used to this kind of work." Marcus turned to face Vanessa, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His expression hardened in a way that made several people take a step back. "Used to it." His voice was dangerously quiet. "What exactly does that mean, Miss Thompson?" "Vanessa Thompson," she stammered, suddenly realizing she'd said something wrong. "I just meant." "You meant that because she's a janitor, she doesn't deserve basic human respect?" Marcus's words cut through Vanessa's fake smile like a sword. The entire office had gone silent. You could have heard a pin drop. But then, from across the room, came a voice that made Marcus's heart skip a beat. "She deserves all the respect in the world." Marcus turned toward the voice and saw her, Jasmine, sitting at a modest desk in the corner, her eyes flashing with quiet conviction. She wasn't trying to impress him or get his attention. She was simply standing up for what was right. Their eyes met across that crowded office, and something electric passed between them. Marcus felt like he'd been struck by lightning. This wasn't just attraction. This was recognition. Like his soul was saying, "There you are. I've been waiting for you." "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Jasmine Parker, sir." "Thank you, Jasmine, for reminding everyone in this room what human decency looks like." Vanessa's face turned red with embarrassment and rage, but Marcus had already moved on, helping Eleanor to her feet with the same gentle respect he'd show his own mother. From her position on the floor, Eleanor watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. Her son had just met his future wife, and he didn't even know it yet. But Vanessa knew it, and she was not about to let it happen. That evening, Vanessa sat in her luxury apartment in Midtown, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. She'd seen the way Marcus looked at Jasmine. She'd heard the respect in his voice, and it made her sick. "This cannot happen," she muttered to herself. "I've worked too hard, spent too much money on clothes and makeup and everything else, just to lose to some nobody from the mailroom." She picked up her phone and dialed Nicole's number. "We have a problem," Vanessa said the moment Nicole answered. "That little church girl has caught the boss's attention." "Jasmine? But she's so plain." "Plain or not, he noticed her, and I'm going to make sure he forgets all about her." The next few weeks were like a fairy tale and a nightmare happening at the same time. Marcus found excuses to walk by Jasmine's desk, to ask her opinion on company matters, to have conversations that lasted longer than they should. Their connection was undeniable. He was drawn to her kindness, her intelligence, her genuine spirit. She was attracted to his integrity, his respect for others, his ability to see people's hearts instead of their bank accounts. But every beautiful moment was shadowed by Vanessa's growing jealousy. She watched their budding romance like a predator stalking its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came on a rainy Thursday evening. Jasmine had just finished work and was waiting for the bus when a black Mercedes pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing Vanessa's perfectly made-up face. "Get in," Vanessa said. "We need to talk." Against her better judgment, Jasmine climbed into the car. Vanessa drove them to the Four Seasons Hotel downtown, the kind of place where dinner cost more than Jasmine made in a week. They sat in the elegant restaurant, surrounded by crystal glasses and fresh flowers, while Vanessa got straight to the point. "I'm going to make this simple for you, Jasmine," Vanessa said, sliding a thick envelope across the table. "There's $50,000 in there. Take it, quit your job, and disappear." Jasmine's eyes widened as she opened the envelope. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. Enough to pay off her student loans, help her sick mother, send her little brother to college. Her hands trembled as she stared at the cash. "Why?" she whispered. Vanessa's smile was cold as ice. "Because Marcus Washington is mine. I've been planning this for years. The perfect wardrobe, the perfect connections, the perfect moment. I will not let some nobody from nowhere steal my future." For a moment, Jasmine didn't speak. The money called to her. It could solve every financial problem her family had ever had. Her mother's medical bills, her brother's college tuition, her own crushing debt. It could all disappear. But then she thought about Marcus's kind eyes, about Miss Eleanor's gentle smile, about everything her grandmother had taught her about integrity and self-respect. Jasmine closed the envelope and pushed it back across the table. "No!" Vanessa's face twisted with rage. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "No, Vanessa," Jasmine said, standing up with dignity. "You're making yours." She walked out of that restaurant with her head held high, not knowing that Vanessa's expression had turned absolutely murderous. If Jasmine wouldn't take the money, Vanessa would destroy her another way. 2 weeks later, Jasmine's world came crashing down. She was getting ready for work when her apartment door exploded open. 2 police officers stormed in, handcuffs ready. "Jasmine Parker, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud." "What?" Jasmine's voice cracked with shock. "There's been some mistake." But there was no mistake. At least, not an accidental one. Vanessa had spent weeks carefully moving money around, creating fake transactions, building a paper trail that led straight to Jasmine's bank account. To the outside world, it looked like Jasmine had been stealing from Washington Enterprises for months. The arrest made the local news. The headlines screamed about corruption at one of Atlanta's most respected black-owned businesses. And Marcus, watching from his office, felt his heart shatter into a million pieces. He wanted to believe in Jasmine's innocence, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, transaction histories, digital fingerprints. Everything pointed to the woman he'd been falling in love with. But there was one person who knew the truth. Eleanor Washington sat in the police station waiting room at 3 a.m., having posted Jasmine's bail with money from her personal account. When Jasmine walked out of that cell, looking broken and defeated, Eleanor's heart ached like it was her own daughter suffering. "Miss Eleanor?" Jasmine whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you? How did you?" Eleanor took Jasmine's hands in hers. "Because I know who you really are, baby girl. And I know you didn't do this." They drove through the empty Atlanta streets in Eleanor's modest car. Not her usual Bentley, but the old Toyota she'd bought to maintain her disguise. Jasmine cried softly in the passenger seat, her whole world destroyed. "Who would do this to me?" she whispered. "Why?" Eleanor's jaw tightened. She had a pretty good idea who was behind this, but she needed proof, and she needed to test her son one final time. The next morning, Marcus sat in his office, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. His heart was at war with his mind. The evidence said Jasmine was guilty, but everything in his soul screamed that she was innocent. He'd built his whole life on trusting his instincts. Should he abandon that now? His assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Washington, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Send them in." The door opened, and Marcus looked up expecting to see a client or business associate. Instead, he saw Miss Eleanor, the janitor, standing in his doorway. But something was different about her. She stood taller. Her eyes held authority he'd never noticed before. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute truth. "Marcus," she said softly, "we need to talk." Marcus frowned. How did the janitor know his first name? Eleanor stepped into the office and slowly began to remove her hairnet. Her gray hair fell loose around her shoulders. Then she reached up and peeled away the subtle makeup that had aged her face. Finally, she straightened to her full height, and Marcus saw her as she truly was. "Hello, son," Eleanor Washington said with a smile. "Did you miss your mother?" Marcus's mouth fell open. The room spun around him as the impossible became reality. "Mom? What? How? Why are you dressed like?" Eleanor sat down across from her son, her eyes twinkling with love and mischief. "Because I needed to know who you were going to fall in love with, and I needed to make sure she loved you for the right reasons." For the next hour, Eleanor told Marcus everything. The disguise, the testing, watching Jasmine's kindness when no one important was looking. She told him about Vanessa's cruelty, about Jasmine's refusal to take the bribe, about the frame-up that had destroyed an innocent woman's life. "She's innocent, Marcus," Eleanor said firmly. "That girl has a heart of gold, and someone evil tried to destroy her because she threatened their plans." Marcus felt rage and love warring in his chest. Rage at whoever had hurt Jasmine, and overwhelming love for the woman he'd almost lost faith in. "Where is she now?" he asked. "Probably at home, crying her eyes out and wondering why God would let this happen to good people." Marcus was already reaching for his car keys. "Not anymore," he said grimly. "It's time to make this right." That afternoon, Vanessa sat in her apartment, celebrating with a glass of champagne. Jasmine was destroyed, her reputation in ruins. Marcus would never touch her now. The path was clear for Vanessa to swoop in and comfort the heartbroken CEO. But her celebration was interrupted by a knock at the door. When she opened it, her blood turned to ice. Marcus Washington stood there, but his face was harder than granite. Behind him stood two police officers. "Vanessa Thompson," one of the officers said, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Vanessa saw Eleanor Washington step out from behind the police car, no longer disguised as a janitor, but revealed as one of Atlanta's most powerful women. "How?" Vanessa whispered. Eleanor's smile was colder than winter. "Baby girl, you forgot something important. I own this company. Every computer, every transaction, every digital footprint. It all belongs to me. And when you mess with my family, I will use every resource I have to destroy you." The investigation had revealed everything. The fake transactions, the planted evidence, even recordings of Vanessa's threats to Jasmine. Justice, it seemed, was finally being served. But Marcus wasn't thinking about justice right now. He was thinking about redemption. He found Jasmine at home, sitting on her small apartment's fire escape, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. She looked fragile, broken, like a beautiful bird with damaged wings. "Jasmine," he called softly. She turned, and when she saw him, fresh tears sprang to her eyes. "Marcus, I swear to you, I never." "I know," he said, climbing up to sit beside her. "I know everything now, and I'm so sorry I doubted you, even for a second." He told her about his mother's test, about Vanessa's arrest, about how every charge against her had been dropped. But most importantly, he told her about his heart. "I fell in love with your kindness," he said, taking her hands in his. "The way you treated my mother when you thought she was just a janitor. The way you stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. The way you chose integrity over money, even when that money could have changed your life." Jasmine looked into his eyes, seeing not the wealthy CEO, but the man who had defended an old cleaning lady when no one else would. "Your mother," she said with a shaky laugh, "is the wisest woman I've ever met." 6 months later, the society pages of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a beautiful story about the wedding of Marcus and Jasmine Washington. The reception was held at the Washington family estate, where Eleanor danced with her new daughter-in-law under strings of lights and a canopy of stars. "Thank you," Jasmine whispered to Eleanor during their dance, "for seeing something in me worth protecting." Eleanor smiled, her eyes bright with joy. "Baby girl, I didn't see anything in you that wasn't already there. I just made sure my son was smart enough to see it too." As for Vanessa, she served her time in federal prison, learning the hard way that true worth isn't measured in designer handbags or bank accounts, but in the content of one's character. And sometimes, late at night, when Marcus and Jasmine were curled up together in their beautiful home, they would talk about the lesson Eleanor had taught them both. The measure of a person's heart isn't how they treat those who can help them, but how they treat those who can't. In a world full of people looking for shortcuts to happiness, they had found something more valuable than gold. A love built on mutual respect, shared values, and the wisdom of a mother who knew that the best treasures in life are often hidden in the most unexpected places. Sometimes, the janitor mopping your floor might be testing your soul. And sometimes, the person who passes that test gets to live happily ever after.